So now let's go across to what's unfolding there in Singapore. In Singapore, where Prime Minister Narendra Modi is, an interaction is on with his counterpart, Prime Minister Singapore, Lawrence Wong. This is very important, remember. It's about semiconductor, digital technology, health. Prime Minister Modi is speaking. Let's listen in at this bilateral meeting.
कि हम इस दिशा में मिलकर प्रयास कर रहे हैं। हमारे बीच जो मिनिस्टरियल राउंड टेबल बनी है वो एक पाथ ब्रेकिंग मैकेनिज्म है। स्किलिंग, डिजिटलाइजेशन, मोबिलिटी। हम भी भारत में अनेकों सिंगापुर बनाना चाहते हैं और मुझे खुशी है कि हम इस दिशा में मिलकर प्रयास कर रहे हैं। हमारे बीच जो मिनिस्टरियल राउंड टेबल बनी है वो एक पाथ ब्रेकिंग मैकेनिज्म है। स्किलिंग, डिजिटलाइजेशन, मोबिलिटी, एडवांस मैन्युफैक्चरिंग।
Remember that Prime Minister Modi is no stranger to Singapore. In fact, this is his 5th visit to Singapore. Last visit was in 2018. And the official welcome happened. There was a private dinner hosted by Lawrence Wong, the Prime Minister of Singapore. All of that has happened as well. But the focus eventually will be what kind of memorandum of understanding will be signed. And we saw those visuals coming in because Singapore and India share a lot of development and vision with regard to as Asian nations in the next few years. This is what Prime Minister Modi is referring to. Let's listen in.
राउंड टेबल बनी है वो एक पाथ ब्रेकिंग मैकेनिज्म है। स्किलिंग, डिजिटलाइजेशन, मोबिलिटी, एडवांस मैन्युफैक्चरिंग जैसे सेमीकंडक्टर और एआई, हेल्थ केयर, सस्टेनेबिलिटी और साइबर सिक्योरिटी जैसे क्षेत्रों में सहयोग की दिशा में
It's significant, remember, the comments that are coming in, because this roundtable also that he's talking about is also a business roundtable with Singaporean business leaders. It was organized by the Singapore Business Administration, which means if such a significant special event has been organized, it's looking ahead for what kind of business and trade that we can do between Singapore and India. I want to now bring in our Foreign Affairs Editor, Geeta Mohan. Geeta, as you continue to track the latest coming in from this, can we say India and Singapore together intend to become the two big Asian nations when it comes to health, skills, digital technology, semiconductor ecosystem? Because Singapore also is increasingly developing and has reached a lot of milestones.
Well, absolutely. Singapore starting off in a very short span of time, starting off as a country that nobody was looking at in the manufacturing and semiconductor hub, today has become a developed country and a major hub when it comes to technology and semiconductor industry. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be going to AEM Holdings semiconductor facility only to highlight the importance of growing India-Singapore cooperation that's needed on this front. An area that every country that looks to counter China is looking at. The China-Taiwan war, so to say, is not specifically only to do with land, but also to do with this very same technology that Taiwan absolutely dominates in. And Taiwan, Singapore have a major cooperation on that front when it comes to semiconductor facilities and industry. In that area, the Act East policy of India is also to enhance cooperation in an area that could counter China, that could look at making a safe space for India, given that this is an area and this is a technology that is not just futuristic but also present. Every industry, every important high-tech industry, whether it's defense or any other important industry, healthcare, requires these semiconductor chips, and that's why India is looking at how to not just cooperate but also bring in investments and manufacturing into India. And on that road to bringing investments and manufacturing into India, India is looking at cooperating and having cooperation with facilities such as AEM Holding in Singapore, as also with Taiwan, Malaysia. The Prime Minister of Malaysia was here. The same conversations took place. So in the Act East policy, semiconductors have become a big part of the India conversation.
Do tell me this about how do you think possibly how the Western nations or the world will be looking at this? Because remember, this is as much while India has been improving its friendship and trade ties with other nations in Europe and the USA, but when it comes to Asia in itself, India's focus has also been that, whether it's Global South, whether it's Asian nations, that India with some of these countries will grow up to be a powerhouse, that Asia will not be seen as only simply these third developing countries or the third world, so to say. And do you think that also brings in the focus here?
Well, when it comes to the Western perspective, Pooja, the focus and the thrust is the Indo-Pacific architecture. Singapore plays a very important role. In fact, it's in the Shangri-La dialogue that India cemented that idea of Indo-Pacific, moving away from the Asia-Pacific nomenclature that was used in the past. Moving on to and accepting the Western idea of Indo-Pacific. So, on that front, when we look at things from the West, from West perspective, it is the Indo-Pacific security architecture that they see solidifying with India-Singapore cooperation, and India's Act East policy certainly is working towards strengthening of that important Indo-Pacific theater.
Also, can we bring in the angle here, if I'm correct, Geeta, isn't the president of Singapore, Tharman Shanmugaratnam, Indian origin, Indian origin or Indian connect there as well? While I look at the Indian folk dance happening by Singaporean citizens that they are performing, I think this is the Odissi dance, if I'm correct, that they are performing. It's incredible the kind of friendship, connections that we have between India and Singapore.
Well, the ties between India and Singapore, particularly when it comes to the Tamil community, is very, very large. Singapore does have a huge Tamil diaspora, a huge South Indian diaspora, but particularly Tamil diaspora. And it's not just the president who is of Indian origin. One of the most important leaders and significant players in politics, Vivian Balakrishnan, who you can see in the visuals exchanging the memorandum of understanding with Dr. Jaishankar, the four memoranda of understanding, is also of Indian origin. Again, both Tamil descent. So very important to see the Tamil Nadu Singapore connect over here. A huge population in Singapore, whether it's to do with initially many years ago when they were building Singapore, to do with labor that went to Singapore, to today at the highest echelons of politics and the technology sphere. We see the Tamil community.
Absolutely incredible. I think what an interesting trivia there. But also let's hope that we are looking at the two big powerhouses that could become a global powerhouse as well, India and Singapore, especially when it comes to semiconductor industry, digital technology, health, skill and more. What is it that India and Singapore together cannot achieve? So here's that hope and vision both countries will be putting out together with these MOUs. Thank you very much, Geeta.